Hello? Yes? Ah, it
Hey!
works. Great.
Right,
Hi.
that'll be because I set up the the audio for on the mic as well. So there you go.
I, I
All
don't know
right,
what setup you're
genius.
using. It's just a blank screen to me.
I know.
So
Well, listen, um I'm not camera ready this week.
I see. Not to worry. Right.
If I should have probably what I should have done is given you guys a nudge earlier, and then Baza or one of you would have said, "Oh, we're doing this now on YouTube," and I would have made an effort. But as it is,
No, I think it's fine. It's just to provide a convenient place where people on Discord where everybody can get a reliable stream because it seems like we were having trouble when they were trying to log into Riverside.
oh, okay.
And Discord wasn't great because so Riverside. Do you know about all this? Probably not, I guess. So Riverside records what it hears from your microphone and then sends me everybody's audio separately, so we have the best possible quality. Whereas the old way we were doing it on Discord,
Oh,
it was listening over VoIP, so we'd get dropouts and crackles and things in the final version. So
oh,
this
brilliant.
rather circuitous architecture or
Yeah.
topology is a bit of a pain to set up and work with, but it means that the final product is much better,
Oh,
and
nice.
and nobody
Okay.
cares if I have to do extra work. So right, I've prepared my story, and I believe my stories, and I believe that we are set up um, technically. So I'm now going to go off and make a cup of tea, etc.
Okay.
I'll see you a little bit nearer the time.
Brilliant. Lovely. See you then. Thanks, Darian.
Hey up. Oh,
Hello.
hello.
Hi, how are you? Sorry,
I'm
I'm
fine.
munching
Yeah, go
an
for it.
apple.
Sorry, love.
I said, sorry, I'm munching an apple back here. I just wanted to say hi.
That's all right. You have a good. Go ahead and have a good munch.
Oh, how
You
are
can't.
you?
I'm fine. Lots of rushing around. You're a little bit quiet, but we'll have to wait and see for everybody else to appear.
Who, I'm quiet, am I?
Slightly that, yes.
I put my microphone, I've turned the volume down.
Yeah, I think you might need to come up a bit, as it were.
Okay. Okay, is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
Also, it seems to be better when you're more on axis. Otherwise, you seem to lose all of your nice diction,
Oh.
and you don't want to lose your diction, do you?
I've worked so hard and my parents paid so much money for this fiction.
Yeah. So
So
I'm
how
just sort of sitting in and heckling from the sidelines today.
no, that's perfect actually. And it's
'Cause I
it's
didn't think I was going to be here today. So,
oh, where did you think you were gonna be?
not here.
Oh, okay. Government work. Wet
Uh,
work.
uh,
Honeyballs wet work.
no,
Who are you taking
yes,
out?
yes, yes. There's 10 in the audience, so the answer to that one is not here. Yes,
Oh, are people listening right now?
they are indeed. I think they are
Oh.
actually. Let's just sort of wave at people and say, can they hear us?
Ah. Oh, okay. So are we still chatting on Discord?
We are in podcast
Ah.
chat. The clue being in the name.
Oh, okay. Better, new computer and new
You can see a vote Labour if you zoom out. What? Jason Wynne? I don't think so. So who have we got here? Dum-ba-dum-ba-dum. You're on the wrong side of the Pennines, Mr. Rutson. Does that mean the north side, the south side, or the east side or the west side? Or the upside? Or even the downside, I guess. Yes, I agree, Mr. Wynne. I think that Roche is a little bit quiet.
and now?
I think that's a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Well, no, that's because I'm trying to get onto Discord and it's giving me one of those, I'm not a robot things, which I hate. Because, yeah.
Oh my God, first world problem.
Hey, verify that. Oh no, how many of these things must you do?
This is rather nice. We probably should hardware this at some point. It's new out from Anker, who make nice chargers. But it's a MagSafe charger and table stand if you open it up. And as you can see, it's got nice little find the camera. Nice little status on the side there.
Ooh.
And it is, how big is it? It's quite big, this one. It's a Power IQ. What's its size? I must say on here somewhere what its rated capacity is. 10K. So it's useful. Yeah, it's about 20. Yes, exactly, Mr. Rutson. It's about 26. If you put a iPhone Pro Max, 15 Pro Max on it, you can get an idea of size, and then the display says nice things about how long it's going to take to charge and so forth. So
John,
it makes a nice
sorry
little
to
table stand.
interrupt. Will you send me an invite for Discord? Because it's taking me.
I don't know. What?
Can you send me an invite to the PC Pro Discord channel?
I don't know how to do that.
Eh,
Invite people. Okay. Okay. Where can I place this? I'll put it into Slack.
Yeah.
Slacky poos. There we go.
Mm,
Try that.
thanks.
Mike the Cyclist. What would I vote? I think none of the above. Should be on every ballot form. Oh, this one's quite good as well as a charger. This is 100 watt. Is this Anker? Yeah, 100 watt single port, but really useful. What was that charging? Oh, and oldie but a goodie. This has gone around the world with you quite a few times from Anker. 25,000 milliwatt hours, USB A and C. Yeah, so that little Anker MagSafe desk stand is really good because I leave it on the desk plugged in to power, and so I can use it as a desk stand and charger. What else have I got here that's new and fun? Oh, I know. New out from the nice people at Quadlock. They're now doing Quadlock MagSafe, and they're now doing sticky mounting car mountings with MagSafe on. Yes, I have the motorbike mounts here. So that is the charger plus anti-vibration thing, which will be going on the bikes shortly. I just need to take off the BMW mounts and the and all that hardware and wire these in. Also, I've got the Beeline version 2 coming tomorrow. I think it has shipped, and Beeline is fab on a motorbike. It's actually all you need, but the new one looks amazing. Oh, we got a Lee.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, motorcycle GPS CarPlay screen. That's tempting. That works well. Is it this carpool ride thing?
Good afternoon.
I shall give that a go, Mr. Weed. Afternoon, Lee.
How do you?
Because the BMW V5 and V6 are utter shite. I've got a Garmin motorbike thing on the BMW through a 3D printed interface mount, and I'm getting pissed off with that. It's a nice piece of kit, but the maps are out of date in terms of places and speed limits and stuff, despite being the current maps. So I think Garmin is dropping the ball there. But a CarPlay screen for your motorbike, now that would be nice. And it does wireless, so you can keep the... yes. Yes, I'm a Senna guy in in my headsets.
What are you yabbering on about?
CarPlay for motorbikes.
Didn't even know that was such a thing.
Oh, well, apparently so. I've just been pointed in the direction of one by Mr. Wynn on the on the Discordness, and it looks really rather tasty. I may actually have to have a little shopping accident. Because it means you get full CarPlay, but you can keep the you can keep your phone in a rucksack or a pannier with a battery pack on it.
Is CarPlay wireless?
Yeah, has been for a while.
All right.
It sets up a Wi-Fi hotspot, so it does Bluetooth and wireless connectivity. In fact, the wireless stuff is mandatory for the new CarPlay stuff that has multiple screens in the car, the new version.
Nice. I still have to jam a USB cable into my my phone to make the Android Play work in my old car.
Ah, well, never mind. Oh, there is actually quite nice. Quadlock is now doing a wireless USB adapter for CarPlay for devices that have CarPlay but don't have the wireless CarPlay, like our 10-year-old VW van.
Oh, short wheelbase or long wheelbase?
Oh, it's a Caddy. It's towards the M6 because it's going oop north at the moment, loaded with our product.
Lee, your office is doing a passable impression of the old PC Pro Labs.
It is an absolute car crash in here today, mate.
That's what he said.
Yeah,
Oh,
very much so.
yeah, just shite everywhere. Sorry, my apologies, I'm on air. Yeah, shite everywhere. I'm not changing it. Yes, unfortunately, I'm in the shop today because they've closed the school because it's vote for a cretin day. So it's all the kids are off around here.
I won't question why that's the grant name for this particular civic event.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
But it's all going to be fabulous come tomorrow.
Yes,
Fabulous.
more benign cattle coming into power. Excellent.
Let's not do politics, eh?
No, that's not.
I'm just having a
Anyway.
little shopping accident on that motorbike CarPlay thing. It will be here tomorrow, so if Mr. Campbell's online, you can have a fiddle with it tomorrow.
Well, there's enough you don't get every day.
I know. People pay extra for that.
Are we all right? It's nice that there's 5 of us.
Yeah, what?
Hi.
Sorry,
Welcome back, Roche.
Thanks so much. It's great to be back. You know, back in the game.
I'll ask you again in an hour.
Can
You're
you get? I was going to say, can you get any closer to your microphone, Roche?
Yeah, do I need to hit join studio?
No, you're in. You're broadcasting, as far as I know.
Okay. I'm right up close and personal. Right.
You
Are you
definitely
using the
need to-
right
Need
microphone?
closer.
Could you hit your settings and just check that it says the microphone you're expecting to use? Because Riverside has a bit of a little tricky tendency to use a different input device to the one you
Or just tap
want
the
it to.
microphone you're hoping to see whether it goes tappity tap. Yeah, it's definitely that one.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, your gain is down. Now your gain is, well, I've changed your gain. Yes, that should.
Is
try
that
speaking
better?
again, Rush. Oh, still quite
Testing.
soft.
Hello.
Still quiet.
Yes.
So good to be back. Oh man.
And have us complaining about your audio again.
Yeah, I missed it.
What are you on, Roche? Windows or Mac?
I'm on Windows.
Darren, can you help with the turn up gain control? Lee, what the hell are you
No,
doing?
I don't know how to do it on Windows offhand. I'm afraid I don't have a Windows
Yeah.
machine in front of me. So
Oi.
I think Lee's dismantling his shoppers.
you've got 2 seconds, Lee. Right, 1 o'clock.
I guess we should probably wait until he's.
Probably, yeah. Till he's finished dismantling
What is he doing?
the workshop. He's just quickly putting together a gaming PC, I think.
Right, Grant, put down the
Come here.
day job. We're ready to go.
Okie dokie. Brace yourselves.
Do we want?
Lee, can you get any closer into your mic? Actually, I'm hearing quite.
Yes,
a lot
I'll have to go like that though.
That's
Whoa,
perfect.
right.
Thank you. Yes.
Steady the bells.
But yeah, we've got quite. I have been dealing with quite a lot of background noise, kind of creeping into these recordings lately. So it's really good to, if everyone can.
Lee, stop shuffling.
Just give me two seconds. Just sing to them or something. Hold on.
What is he doing? I've never seen him so rattled.
I'm just finding a box set
You think it's going to be quite boring? You might want to watch some DVDs.
No, I've got my microphone balanced on a box set of Doctor Who and a Peppa Pig lunchbox. That's tech for you.
Mm.
Is that any right? And if I do that, is that any better?
Yes, that's perfect.
better.
Excellent.
Roche,
It's typing.
Yes.
can you see
That's
Nick
probably me.
Gassman's
Oh,
instructions?
John. Sorry,
Stopping.
John. Your headset is not very directional, so it picks up a lot of background noise. If you can possibly mute yourself when you're not talking, it will
I
help
shall
me a lot.
mute.
Thank you. Cheers.
Who, me? Yeah.
Roche, the brilliant Nick Gassman. If you go into settings, system, sound and turn, you can turn up your mic. Can you see that? Roche?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
So if you go into your Windows control panel settings, or just search for settings,
Yeah.
system, I feel like I'm on a Dell helpline.
Okay.
here.
Yeah. System. I'm in it.
Sound.
System sound. I'm at 100.
Oh, that's a bit of a worry.
Yeah.
Just have to scream.
Okay. If you want to go faster or just generally.
It's that kind of day. All right, let's do it. Good afternoon and welcome to episode 700 of the PC Pro podcast. Who'd have thought we'd all live so long? I'm Barry Collins, features editor of that magazine thing. And with me today, I'm really pleased to welcome back the legal mind of Roche Nahuma.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We've got Huddersfield's finest PC repairer, Lee Grant.
Good afternoon.
We have Wi-Fi 7's very own Darren Graham-Smith.
Hello there.
And we have the notorious spendthrift, that is John Honeyball.
Afternoon.
Afternoon. And as you can see, there's probably the biggest crowd we've had in the podcast for weeks, if not months. So good to have so many people around. Roche, we're starting with you this week. And Microsoft apparently thinks everything on the internet is free for all.
Yeah, so I mean, this guy obviously has a career in tech, but maybe not in law. So Microsoft's AI boss thinks it's perfectly okay to steal content, is the headline that caught my eye. He said this. So this is what he said. I think that with respect to content that's already on the web, the social contract of that content since the 90s has been that it's fair use. So there's a couple of problems with this. Okay, so number one, prisons are full of innocent people. Not that they're innocent, but that they don't know. So you hear things like, but I only slapped her, or yeah, you're not allowed to do that. Or you'll hear, like someone's stolen a bike and you're like, yeah, you're not actually allowed to take the bike without authority. And so the prisons are full of them. And then Solomon is really setting himself up as somebody who doesn't understand the fundamentals. So he talks about social contract. Contract has a really clear definition in law. So, and he's relying on the wording of contract. I'm not going to go into it, but just really clearly, you have to have some kind of a consideration. And also there has to be some kind of informed consent and intention to create legal relations. And none of those things apply. So anyone who was putting stuff out in the 90s, it would not have been within their contemplation that there would be a tool that would scrape all of their useful content and then regurgitate it, depriving them of the benefit of earning from it. So it's a really odd argument to trot out. I don't know to what extent he's spoken to lawyers, but we see this actually quite often, and we sometimes see it when you have businesses say, oh, I'm relying on the business judgment rule. So they'll have made a decision with respect to tech, and they say, well, we're going to rely on the business judgment rule. But actually, for the business judgment rule to operate, it has to be in good faith, based on informed and expert advice. And so this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this kind of like dilution of legal language and hijacking of language that we're sort of familiar with to make spurious arguments that, quite frankly, you don't usually see from somebody operating at this level. And what it's doing is it's going to make content. Oh, and then of course there's the other thing. And so there's the other thing as well, is that they said, that it's fair use policy and it's part of the social contract. They might have had some, there might have been some way that they could rely on this if they hadn't already created licenses with businesses like the Financial Times and there's a whole host of other publishers that they've already that they're already paying. So if on the one hand they're paying these guys and they recognize the value, then why aren't they paying everyone for the value that they're obviously harvesting?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to go too far to get a legal clarification on this, because if you visit Microsoft's own website on its licensing terms FAQ, it states that if a work is in the public domain, the work may be freely used without permission from the creator of the work. However, just because a work is available online does not mean it's in the public domain or free to use. That's Microsoft's own licensing site. And as I sort of pointed out in a piece for Forbes this week, Microsoft publishes Windows and Office and all of its other software freely available online. If we follow through his argument to its logical conclusion, he's just made Windows freeware.
Oh, well, then I'll stop talking and sure, everybody have at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. I stress that's not the advice of the PC Pro podcast or future publishing before we land ourselves into trouble. John, you're smiling away at this. You might need to unmute yourself. But what did you make of this?
I think it's it's a discussion point that's long overdue. We've talked about it before. I mean, we have to remember, of course, that scraping the internet has been essentially the entire backbone of the business model of Google for the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, however long it's been. And the idea that they can go and index everything and then provide you, scrape everything from the internet and then provide you with an index, that's the useful bit to the user. And then, of course, as we know, they have this all-encompassing advertising model that sits on the back of that. And so I think there's an awful lot of, this has been allowed for 15, 20 years or so why is this not any different? But that argument, I think, really won't wash, because you could argue that scraping the internet for the purposes of creating an index is one thing. Scraping the internet for content to create more content through LLMs, ChatGPT, etc., is entirely a separate ham sandwich. And I think this whole reliance, well, it's out there, you didn't stop me taking it, it's fair use, isn't it really, Gov? I'm really looking forward to this being challenged. The problem is the place it needs to be challenged is in the American courts and the Supreme Court, and they're going to be very pro-American business, because at the end of the day, we're talking here about the likes of Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, etc. And so maybe we could look forward to the EU stepping up to this and saying this is actually not fair use, and it can't be done for content that originated in the EU. And of course that can of worms then is that content created by somebody in the EU that might be hosted on an American server or an American owned service. So, you know, where is the concept of creation happening if they wanted to actually ban it from an EU perspective? But this is a huge argument that's going to come down the line. And it's going to really make a lot of lawyers very wealthy.
But where's the logical conclusion here, Darian? Because let's say, you know, the EU or America legal system find this illegal, that they've infringed copyright, whatever. All we're going to end up with is massive lawsuits with fines at the end of them, aren't we?
Well, I mean, hopefully we will end up with... In fact, I mean, the EU has already put in place a new AI law which governs what content AI companies, well, any companies, but it's aimed at AI companies, are allowed to ingest and use to train their models, and requires transparency. And there's already enormous fines kind of hanging over the heads of any companies which try to use the argument that this chap, I didn't catch his name actually, the Microsoft head of this, that, or the the other. This ridiculous. I mean, he must have had people crowding around him straight after this interview going, why did you say that? That is self-evidently so not how things work, and you're going to get us into horrific trouble if you go out there claiming that's Microsoft's philosophy or approach. So I think the answer is it's kind of already ended. I don't think there is a discussion to be had. I believe he is just very wrong on a very high-profile, large scale, and while we may not get, an overt rolling back, we are definitely not going to see Microsoft or any big AI company just, cleaving to that argument. It's dead in the water. Everyone knows it.
It's Mustafa Suleyman, who is the head of AI at Microsoft, who's been there a few months and may not be there too much longer if he keeps speaking like that. Lee, what do you make of this?
Well, we spoke about him when he was appointed back in, I think it was early spring. And where he'd been before, I think it was Google DeepMind. I remember, I think we did it as a nib. And I was surprised that he was the person that was brought in, because he was very much the salesman of his previous endeavors. And so he came from a very successful company, but he wasn't the technical brains behind it. And there's an argument to say he's possibly not the legal brain behind it either. But, is this not just an extension, going from what John was saying, this is just not an extension of how large companies do business these days? You look at NFTs, where the model was, we've got nothing to sell, but you're going to buy it anyway. And this is now, we've stolen everything from you, and now we're going to sell it back to you. They're justifying it with the same eloquence that a 6-year-old uses when they get caught with a pocket full of sweets. It's really pretty poor. But if I can just go back to this fair use thing, and as we've got a lawyer on tap, I will ask, because this fair use, I see it mentioned a lot when people are saying, hey, I want to do a podcast about music, and what can I use under fair use? And I'm led to believe that certainly in the UK, as I understand it, fair use doesn't really exist. Is that right, Roche?
So actually, no, not really. But
okay.
So it depends. Oh gosh, this is a huge can of worms, and this is not really my area, but this is what I know about it so far. So say, for example, if you were going to do a podcast and it's going to be music, you would then reach out to the owner, which isn't always the artist, whoever owns the legal rights to distribute the music in that region, and it's not the same globally. So if your podcast had global reach, then you would need to reach out to them, but then you would need to say, okay, so this is the I want to exploit this bit. This is the context, because a lot of these owners don't want to have their music associated, say, like with the far right, or even in the run up to elections and things like that, and then you need to have that. So they would look for, how long is the piece, which piece, what's the context. This is like, show business. The clue is in the name. It's the business part, right? So they're going to be looking to protect their rights. And so then what fair usage is will depend on what you want to do. But we have been using, look, academics and authors use snippets of people's work all the time, and you'll see references where they're clearly attributed. But that actually kind of goes to John's point about Google, which I would distinguish the Google indexing from Microsoft's AI scraping, on the grounds that, look, there are issues with the Google indexing, but at least it takes you to the business where the result, it returns the results which are the most relevant, and then you're able to drive traffic and sales to that website. What AI is doing is, to Darian's point, it looks like this illegal argument was put together by a child or or a salesman, which is, that's essentially it. And then, of course, we're breathing life into it by repeating his argument, where, every single word in Sullivan's first paragraph, you can deconstruct it and put the whole thing to bed. So sorry, so fair use, it's a bit of a can of worms. There's no quick answer.
If Lee's cancelling fair use, my entire career is in big trouble. John, final word with you.
Just a very quick one here. Do you remember a month or so back, was it the lady technical director of OpenAI was in an interview, and she was asked where they were getting their material from, and she was very cagey. I think that I'm referring to the right lady, aren't I?
Yeah.
You remember? And she said, "Oh, we've got licensed content from YouTube, and we got licensed from here and there," and then was asked basically were they essentially scraping the entire web and everything out on there, and she was very, very cagey, because I think people are aware of the fact in this business that the LLM training model world is entirely built at the moment on scraping and modeling the public internet. It will be different in the future when you're training it on internal private data and so forth, and that will have some more direct, interesting business applications, for example. But for the time being, everything that's happening out there on the public internet, or on the public-facing AI world, if we can call it that, is trained on publicly visible data, and that's on very thin ice.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not all of the training data. So I know, I think OpenAI had a licensing deal with HarperCollins, for example, to scan its books. I think OpenAI also did a deal with the FT to be able to use its content, and then they reciprocate.
Indeed,
so
but they're not being very clear about all the other places that it's coming from, because they know that down the line people are going to turn around and say, "Oi, you can't do that." And then how are you going to police taking stuff out of these billion object training models and show that it has actually been removed?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Time to move on. And we're moving on to TeamViewer, Darian.
Yeah, this was a very alarming headline for anybody who uses TeamViewer. The company announced last Friday that they had been the victims of a sophisticated cyber attack by government-based hackers working for Russian intelligence. Yes, the notorious APT-29 gang, you might have been forgiven for fearing, suddenly had access to your desktop and all your files and everything that you had open on your computer via the TeamViewer remote access service. Happily, it looks like it's not quite that bad. What happened was we believe, Russian hacker managed to get hold of employee login credentials for employee of TeamViewer's login credentials for their corporate systems, and was able to get into the network. But TeamViewer says, as you would very much hope, the internal company network is absolutely separate from customer computers, and it says that there was no evidence that the threat actor gained access to customer data. However, as of the last statement, it's not entirely clear what the Russians got access to or what they might do with it. So this is sort of a continuation of a rather worrying theme of government-backed, often Russian, I believe Chinese has been mentioned in the past as well, incursions into some very potentially sensitive businesses and services.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem with any remote desktop app like TeamViewer is that once you breach, the consequences are enormous. So just to be clear, they've said there's no risk to customers, or there's no evidence that
TeamViewer have said the networks are completely separate, and they have no evidence that that the person who got into their corporate network had any access to customer computers, which you would expect them to be protected by a totally different system. Hopefully, one indeed that TeamViewer itself doesn't have the keys to. But we don't have all the information at this point. Obviously, putting together a full response and report on an incident like this takes time.
Lee, do you use remote desktop to help customers out?
I certainly do, and it has to be said that I used to use TeamViewer until about 2016, where they went through a similar sort of incident. And the reason that we abandoned TeamViewer at the time is, though there was no sort of massive problem at the end of it, but they were less than transparent about what was going on. And even now, it's really quite hard to say, and they will say that nothing happened. But being in the business that I'm in, I get to speak to lots of other people who are in the business and that do what I do, and we all had the same problem. And there was one piece of software that it was all linked to, so we got rid of them. But I use it all the time, but not these guys anymore, because it is about trust and it's about transparency. And just looking at their information, I mean, they're posting updates on their trust center, but they've not posted anything since June the 30th, unless something has gone up in the last 10 minutes. But certainly this morning when I was looking around, there's no new information. And according to various reports, I've read specific questions which journalists have been asking have also not been answered. So the transparency, which is key in a lot of these cases, and I understand that in some cases they can't obviously tell you exactly what is going on, but it feels like then they're a little more translucent than transparent at the moment.
John, what are you using for remote desktoping?
I don't. Very simple. What people use remote desktoping because it means that they can get into a computer when they're away from the office or from home or whatever. I don't do that. VPN tunnel into the network, and that should give enough access for anything that's required. I'm very wary of these remote app access things. And I think, irrespective of how good they are or even the provenance from where they're from, if you follow any of the YouTube channels that are covering these sort of scamware stuff that's happening, a lot of it out of various places in India and so forth, these companies are relying heavily upon these types of apps to do remote takeover of your computer and so forth, and they're very worrying. Now, of course, I'm not blaming TeamViewer for what some scammer is doing from India against you, pretending to be Norton. That's not fair. And in a corporate environment, you would hope that that this kind of stuff is totally managed by the policy settings for the company. So these types of apps can't be run, for example. And if they are run, they're heavily locked down in terms of what IP addresses are allowed in, from which, client devices, and with enough digital certificates in place. The problem is, as Ian Clark says on Discord, he says, I think remote stuff is great for grandparent support. But you do need to only have it active on demand. And he's absolutely right there, which is these types of tools are phenomenally good for helping a non-computer savvy relative. The problem is that getting them to shut it down afterwards and be sure that they've shut it down so that they're not then open to potential abuse and misuse in the future. And that's the really worrying side of it for me. It's not necessarily the corporate use, because any corporate should, or even larger size of SME, should have this nailed down by group policy.
I remember being in the PC Pro office late at night, and suddenly John Bray's PC would fire up, and things would start moving across the desktop. And he was remote desktoping back into the office. He used to scare living daylights out of me still. Roche, what's this is an unfair question to throw at someone no notice, but legally, if TeamViewer were exploited and they got access to customers' data, were able to remote desktop into people's machines, would TeamViewer be liable for that, or would that be covered in their T's and C's?
Possibly. So that's a really good question, and there's actually two. Oh God, there's no such thing as a short answer, is there? Sorry. So look, if you look at what so SolarWinds were selling, it's like essentially cybersecurity kit out, and they were making promises, and those promises were material representations. And their customers and clients and partners relied to their detriment on those representations. It turned out that they were false, and they were material because, so for one of the things that they said, oh, we're complying with, the NIST best practice and whatnot. And even though they had the policies, John mentioned policies, it was the implementation of the policies is where they fell down. But actually, so even now, just during the week, oh God, sorry, I feel like I'm skiing off piste, but it does answer your question a little bit. So this week, Google issued a security blog with regards Entrust, regarding the certification. Okay.
Yep.
And so, look, Entrust, in order to provide services to their clients, will have made representations to all of those clients. To what degree they've deviated from those it looks as if they would be significant given the excoriating blog that Google put out. So your question is, could they be liable? The answer is yes, but this is going to, like the devil's in the detail. You would have to go to the facts. Have they made representations that induced their customer to like form a contract and then yeah, there could be. And then the damages could be like limitless, which is, by the way, where I see the real pain for businesses. I don't see it coming from regulators. I see it coming from failings in this regard or similar.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's shuffle along. And Lee, there's been some iPhone developments this week.
Yeah, a couple of stories here. We'll go through them, and then I'll tell you why these stories have appeared at this point in time. The first one, there's a couple of stories doing around about Apple batteries, and the first one is quite exciting. They're investigating electrically induced adhesive debonding technologies, which sounds amazing. Which, if I can decode that for you, it's basically a way of loosening the glue that holds in the battery on the phone. And if you've ever been inside a phone, the glue we're talking about is not like a splodge of araldite or anything like that. It's someone has basically crossbred a Pritt stick with some chewing gum. And because we're now live on YouTube, I can actually show you this. Obviously, if you're not on YouTube, you can't see it. So if I
is this where we say other glues are available?
You can do if you like.
Okay.
But basically, on this absolutely knackered hard drive, I've got this little bit of sticky thing here, which is like, again, it's like a bit of chewing gum. And the idea is that sticks to the drive, that sticks to the chassis, and to get it out, you pull it, and it sort of does that.
Ooh.
And it all comes out. And that's how these things work. And 99% of your laptop screens that are out and about, that's what they're stuck in with.
For those listening on audio, didn't see that. So
Oh, sorry.
Lee pulled this off. It was almost like a chewing gum kind of substance where it sort of stretched and stretched until it snapped off of his hard disk. Sorry,
Yeah.
Lee, go on.
No, and that's it. And if you go onto YouTube, you'll see that absolute gold later on. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is chewing gum. However, as manufacturing has gone on, these things break during extraction, which can be fun because that's when the bad language really knocks up a gear, I can tell you, because when you've got nothing to grab onto. So Apple's plan is to use this smart adhesive material, which is like that, but it loses its stickiness when voltage is applied to it. Now, I've seen some footage from Teaser this week, who do Sugru and stuff like that. They're basically a adhesive materials company. And they were demoing basically a huge patch of this adhesive that debonds when 12 volts is applied to it. So it's a really smart piece of technology. And to do this, allegedly, Apple are planning to encase the battery in metal. So the battery replacer can push voltage through the battery housing to loosen the glue. And if any one of you is listening to this with any modicum of engineering nous thinking that sounds like an April Fool joke, then I'm absolutely with you on this, because it sounds bats, absolutely bats. Because I love the concept of the smart material, and I can see some serious industrial uses case. And John's got his finger in the air here. Oh, and he's got his microphone on mute as well. He's that furious. He hasn't unmuted himself.
Sorry. I'm trying to be a good boy and not inject noise into this. My thought here about putting 12 volts across the metal case of a battery. That could have some exciting outcomes, couldn't it?
It could have some stunning ideas. Now, I'm not saying that the teaser demonstration was 12 volt. I'm not suggesting for a second that Apple is suggesting this. But yeah, you're right. Shoving voltage anywhere near a battery is inherently dangerous, which is why Apple is still saying that if they do this, battery replacement needs to be done by a professional. Professional with damn good insurance, some Wellington boots, I would say, but a professional on the list. But the problem with, if you look at the wider problem, these glues, these sticky things, they're all plastic-based polymers. And if you haven't heard, we've got a bit of a plastic problem going on. So we need to eradicate it rather than find ways, like this, where you've got to blast a battery with voltage to remove it. And also these glues are not reusable. And if you have a Windows laptop in front of you at the moment, do you know what holds that battery in place? The much larger, much heavier battery? Screws. Simple, removable, recyclable, reusable, non-plastic screws. So the reason that we're here with this strange technology is that EU smartphone regulations are about to kick into use, or certainly within the next year. And there's a whole host of sort of changes that are coming on. For example, batteries need to retain 80% of the capacity over 1,000 cycles. the devices, replaceable batteries still need to meet IP67. The general regulation is for smartphones, batteries need to be user replaceable. I forgot that key point. So there's a bit of legals going on at the moment, and I spoke to a senior EU environmental advocate a few weeks ago about this, because he's been looking at the carve-outs, because there was a rumour that Apple and Samsung might have a carve-out of this, but they reckon they're going to roll over. So we think that this is all to do with that. Because by the time the laws come in, it might affect the iPhone 16. So we might hear a bit more about replaceable batteries in iPhones in the next few weeks.
Lee, why? And people are raising this on Discord, but why is the glue even necessary? In the old days of your Nokia phones, the battery just used to flip out. It never caused any problems in those days. So why is it the iPhone needs to be glued in when the case is already sealed?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and one that I cannot give you a sensible answer for. And to be fair to Apple, it is not just them. There's most of them have this lunacy. Glue is easy. Glue is cheap. Glue is cheaper because, screws come loose, and there's an argument to say that you don't want a loose screw but voltage, but the rest of everything else, it's screwed into place. So I don't particularly buy that either. I've always seen it as a super cheap thing. A lot of the times that glue is used to hold down screens and things like that goes a long way to giving a device a higher IP rating, because basically you've got a box of glue that's waterproof. So there's you can see the justification for using glue in screens, but on batteries, it is purely a laziness thing. And like I said, it's not replicated in laptops. They're just normally put in, but when you're building millions and millions of these devices, if you can save threepence on a couple of screws, then, that multiplies up nicely.
What's the thermal efficiency of this kind of glue? Is it being used to actually move heat out from the battery?
No, it's purely adhesive.
Oh, okay.
It's not even a thermal compound. It is purely to nail it there, because as I did in my little demonstration, when I pulled the strip off very neatly there, because that's how professionals do it, trained professionals, not only these third-party independent clowns. When that stuff breaks, because manufacturers have made this stuff, particularly in screens, have made this stuff so cheap it snaps. It then sticks behind the device, and you have to heat it to an unbelievable level to get that battery out of there. So no, it really is good at soaking up heat, but it's not used in any sort of way to improve the thermal efficiency of the device.
Okay, and there was another Apple story this week, Lee.
Yeah, I'll rattle through this one. Apple has released a paper called Longevity by Design, which you can find on Waterstone's irony section next to Casanova's Guide to Fidelity. Now, in this guide, Apple says they are modifying their software so that people who have battery or screen replacements won't lose access to certain functions, particularly things like True Tone, which controls color balance levels and things like that, depending on the environment. They're also going to allow battery metrics for third-party batteries, but for obvious reasons, they won't be able to sort of justify what a third battery can do compared to those, but you'll get some idea what your battery replacement will do with the software on the iPhone. And this all sounds very lovely. And if you read the paper, you'll know that Apple is doing this because it's a nice company and it's fully supportive of independent repair. But by a staggering coincidence, last Monday, the 1st of July, was the date where right to repair laws took effect in Minnesota and California. Now, neither of these specifically banned the practice of parts pairing, which is what we're talking about. The problem with the True Tone and the battery metrics is when you put third-party swaps into a phone, a new screen or a new battery, Apple shut down certain functions using what's called part pairing. So Minnesota and California doesn't ban that, but we've got coming galloping over the horizon very quickly on the 1st of January 2025 is Oregon's right to repair law, which will then be followed by Colorado a year later, which does, but Oregon and Colorado do prevent part pairing, which again could have consequences for the iPhone 16. So it's great that Apple thought about these changes just at the right time. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with the 16, because it could be considerably different to the 15.
Okay, unless anyone's got anything else they want to add on this issue, we shall tumble along. And Darian, you've been looking into the demographics of antivirus software.
Well, to be honest, security.org has been doing. For the past couple of years, they've been running an independent survey, not just people who visit their sites, but a proper one conducted by real pollsters. This year, they've talked to just under 1,000 American adults and then balanced the results to account for age, gender, and ethnicity. And they have come up with the figure that 46% of US citizens are paying for third-party antivirus software, which means 54% are not. They are using whatever free stuff is built into their computer. That seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't seem too shocking. I was interested to see that the most popular brands that people choose to pay for are Norton, McAfee, and Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes, not so popular in this country, I would say. You don't really hear people talk about it, but it's interesting. Norton and McAfee are very, very divisive brands. I mean, you say anything online about either of them, and you will get a lot of people saying, oh, they're the real viruses, etc., etc. But at the same time, they both do very well in independent tests, and obviously they're doing quite nicely. They're the two biggest brands in the US. Another stat which I thought was quite potentially revealing, though, is that the survey found that twice as many, people over 65 are twice as likely to pay for third-party security software as people under 45. So for whatever reason, it seems like the idea of buying antivirus software has kind of died out a bit among the younger generations, and it's possible that your Nortons and your McAfees may be drinking from a dwindling stream, as it were.
Is it not true that obviously an awful lot of new laptops, for example, from big brands come with a trialware of McAfee?
It is true.
So clearly, McAfee is paying these companies to put it on. Surely,
McAfee is owned by Intel.
It used to be. I'm not sure.
No, it's not anymore.
It's not
Is
anymore.
it not?
No, I think they went independent a couple of years ago.
And that wouldn't work with AMD-based laptops, would it? Thinking about it.
Only
So
3 of those.
okay, but the point though is that McAfee is trying to get their footprint out there by doing the bundling and then moaning at you after 30 days or 60 days that your trial is coming up and you really need to pay for it. So I could certainly see why McAfee has still got a foothold, simply because they're trying to buy their way into the market as the market shrinks. I've heard some figures. I don't know the veracity of them, but I've heard some figures that Windows Defender is now something like 60% of the AV market out there, with everybody else trying to pick up what's left. And of course, as we discussed last week, Kaspersky is now banned from the USA, so that will help the remaining people to carve up the remaining percentage, I guess.
Apparently, Kaspersky only accounted for about 6% of US sales already, which seems surprisingly low for me. But it's a very different market. The thing about McAfee is that, I mean, it's also, although yes, you're absolutely right that it comes on a lot of laptops where nobody asked for it, but it's also the single most popular free antivirus in the US, according to the results of this survey, actually ahead of Avast and Malwarebytes, which I would have expected to be market leaders. So I think McAfee's branding in the US, I know, well, I believe they certainly used to, they still do, like sponsor a sports stadium in California, for example. They're a big business, and it's kind of, I don't think it's solely down to their admittedly very aggressive pushing of their software in your face.
Right, I'm going to go quickly around the table and find out what we all use for antivirus. John?
Well, Windows Defender on Windows. I occasionally install a free something onto Mac just to do an occasional sweep. iOS, I don't bother.
Lee?
Just apologise. Yes, Intel was McAfee spun Intel. Sorry, it left 2022 is what I'm trying to say here. So I missed that. Must have been the pandemic. So apologies for missing. I use Norton, but then again, I am a Norton reseller.
That question wasn't a plant, I promise you, listener. Darian?
Windows Defender on Windows and Avast on Mac. It's never found anything that was Mac specific, but it scans all my files so I don't accidentally put something across onto the other platform.
Roche?
Windows Defender.
Yeah, and I'm a Windows Defender man on Windows, and occasionally Malwarebytes on Mac if I want to do a scan like John says, but very rarely I even bother, to be honest. Lee, you've got your hand aloft.
Yeah, I just want to make a bit of a point, because obviously you've done a little survey there and there's a lot of Windows Defender users, and I think if you know what you're doing with your computer and you have a bit of technical confidence, then you will use the free stuff. if you don't know what you're doing with computers, which is 99% of my customers, then they see antivirus as the insurance policy because they've always been told they need antivirus. And I think a lot of the reassurance these days from particularly the Norton that I sell, and there are other brands available, is not the antivirus security, not the antivirus peace of mind that it brings. It's little things like backup and stuff like that, which is a trifling little matter for you technical people that are listening to this. But having that handled in the way that the native Windows can't really handle it is what gets people coming back time and time again for this software.
Can I throw in a legal 2 cents there to support what Leah's saying?
Of course.
Okay, great. So if you're a small to medium sized enterprise and you don't have like somebody like Lee or John or one of yourselves on the team, then it's absolutely crucial that here's a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. Is the problem well known and understood? Well, yeah, viruses are well known and understood. Is the solution well known and understood? Well, yeah, we've gone through 3 of them, right? So McAfee, Norton, Windows Defender. Then you say, okay, so now is it likely? Is this problem likely? Is it severe? Is it proportionate? So is it affordable for us to put this in place for everyone we have, and it's not eye-wateringly expensive? So then the answer is yes. Would a reasonable person who didn't know put something like that in place? Then the answer is yes. And so if you put those things in and you never need them and something else happens, that can then act as a shield if you then have to defend yourself against an action, because you say, listen, I looked at all of the big problems, I solved for all of those, this thing that happened was unavoidable, unforeseeable, and I landed up in hot water. And then that can just be enough to help you with regulators, who I don't really see as a problem, or your investors, shareholders, or your clients, right? So if a client list goes missing because it's been released into the wild because you haven't taken some kind of care, as long as you've done those basics, you should be in pretty good order.
It's interesting you say that. A few years ago, I did some work for an American company. We got the contract. You should have seen it. But part of it was stipulating, do you take protection on your computer, antivirus protection? And I filled in, yes, Windows Defender is activated. And they came back and challenged it. They said, no, we need you to pay for specific antivirus defense. So what additional benefit do you... No, there's no argument about this. You have, if you want this contract, you have to pay for specific antivirus defense. In fact, I think they might even have a list of approved vendors for it. So yeah, it's amazing.
In fairness, Barry, I mean, Windows Defender is these days very good. It's up there in truth with any of the known players in terms of efficacy. That wasn't true 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
I know about 5 years. Certainly at the start it was weaker, but certainly for the last 5 or more years, I think it's been up there in the charts.
Well, I don't know how long ago was this contract that you're talking about.
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, in that case, you could argue that this is a hangover from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So their thinking was not. And if you're taking a viewpoint of 8 years ago, I probably would have some thoughts in their favour of what they're trying to do there, but absolutely not in the last 5 years.
Okay, all right, time to move along, and it's our 700th lot of nibs. Well, it's not actually. We didn't start doing nibs until quite recently. Lee's already frowning at me. It's the nibs anyway.
Right, I'll start. Thunderbolt 5 cables have been spotted in the wild. Whoops of excitement coming from the audience I can hear. Now, these things can cope with 120 gigabits per second of single direction bandwidth and transmit 240 watts of power. They're available from Amazon in various lengths, with prices starting at 18 quid. However, once you've bought your cable, there's the perennial problem of where do you stick it? And there's virtually no Thunderbolt 5 products on the market at the moment, so you could use it on Thunderbolt 4 stuff, but of course it won't make them any quicker. So in short, a company has made something to fit something else which people cannot buy. And if you're looking for an object lesson on capitalist production methodologies causing environmental Armageddon, then this is it.
Okie doke. Roche, next one's with you.
Okay, so I know this is nibs, but I might not.
Buckle up.
Yeah, I know. So the police allege, so the headline is, police allege evil twin of in-flight Wi-Fi used to steal passenger credentials. And the story is the guy hops on a plane and he's running a fake Wi-Fi network on at least one commercial flight. Some of the staff on the flight recognize this. They catch him as they're coming off. The Australian Federal Police catch him as he's coming off. They discover a portable wireless access device, a laptop and a mobile phone. They get a warrant. They go to his house, and hey presto, they're able to recover quite a bit. So here's my issue with this article. Police allege evil twin. What they're talking about is actually Wi-Fi spoofing or SSID spoofing. And so this is what I know happens. People will see that headline and then they'll start to worry about evil twins, right? And this, we really need to start to clear up the language with respect to cybersecurity and everything that's related to it, because it's just contributing to the noise. So just really quickly, you'll remember, we've called, we've got CEO fraud, Friday afternoon fraud. You've got like whaling. You've got all kinds of phishing synonyms for like phishing attacks. And it doesn't help, because then, it's already unwieldy and there's a lot going on, but it looks worse than what it is. And then I see this headline, police allege evil twin, and you just think, oh man, this is more contribution to the noise. Let's settle on a sort of a taxonomy of language. Let's just call it Wi-Fi spoofing. That would be great. And then let's move forward so that everybody knows we only have the one problem. We don't have evil twins now on in-flight dealing with. Yeah, that's my nibs.
Thank you. And the last one's with me, and this is OpenAI. You may remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about Microsoft Recall and the issues they had security-wise with storing everything in plain text documents. Well, OpenAI says hold my beer for its ChatGPT app for Mac. It also appears to be doing the same, or was doing the same, by storing all of its conversations in a plain text database, just waiting for somebody to log in. In fairness, it's not quite as bad as the Microsoft thing, because it's not recording everything that you're doing on your PC. It's just recording those conversations. But nevertheless, OpenAI have slapped themselves roundly on the wrist and have promised that the database will now be encrypted on the Mac too. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your nibs. And we shuffle along to hot hardware. And this one is with me, and it's not in my hands this week because it's attached to my front door. This is the Tapo video doorbell kit, which has been on said front door for the past 3 or 4 months, where I've been giving it a test. And the main reason I called this one in for test was because about that same time, I got an email from Ring saying, hello, Mr. Collins. We're going to put up the annual subscription fee of your Ring doorbell from £30 to £50 for no reason in particular. Good luck with that. We'll see you in summer. And me and about several million other Ring customers got quite annoyed with this massive hike. I think it's about 30% hike in their fee for absolutely no justification whatsoever, and started looking at alternatives. And Tapo's is one such alternative, and the reason I called it in is because it doesn't have a subscription element, or at least not a mandatory subscription element. So you can run this all locally, you can access videos remotely, you don't have to pay the man an annual subscription to be able to go back and look at who's knocked on your door or who's caught the motion detection. So how good is this camera and doorbell, and what's it like compared to the Rings in particular? The simple answer is it's very good. It's obviously, I'm comparing to a Ring that's a couple of generations old, so it is a slightly unfair comparison, but the video quality on the Tapo doorbell is very good. It's I think a 4K image. I'm just trying to drag up the exact resolution, but where are we? It's 2560 by 1920, so it's nice and sharp. If you're looking at it on a device such as the Amazon Show displays, which is compatible with, then the video comes through nice and crisp. On your modern smartphone, you'll get to see the postman in full 4K glory. And what the real strength of this doorbell is its ability to capture video at night. So it has a lamp on it that lights up when someone presses the doorbell at night. so you can get full color images at night, whereas the Ring doorbell had this sort of infrared black and white effect that makes everybody look a little bit scary. But the video quality on this Tapo doorbell is very good. In terms of compatibility with other devices, it does work fine with the Amazon devices in the house. You just have to download the Tapo app onto your smartphone, connect it to the Amazon, and it all just seems to hook up automatically. You can speak to people who knock at your doorbell, so it will ring, it'll put their image on the screen as soon as they ring, and you can start the two-way conversation exactly like you can with the Amazon Ring doorbells. So you don't really lose any functionality there. It's not quite as easy to just look at the doorbell. If you want to just look at the camera, it seems to take a while and you have to jump through another couple of hoops, but I think that's a fairly rare occurrence. I would say the motion detection is okay, but it has a couple of special features that don't really work at all. So one of them is parcel detection, which could be really useful if it worked. So you could say, only alert me if you see someone carrying a parcel, which for me, 99% of the people who knock at our door are couriers hiking parcels, and I want to know if a courier's at the door, because half the time they'll just bang on the front door. They won't actually use the doorbell, and you end up with parcels stuck in the recycling bin or with the one at number 72 rather than actually in your hands like you want. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to work very well in my experience. It doesn't seem to detect a parcel unless it's like a huge box. It doesn't seem to pick it off very well. But the motion detection is fine. It's hard to tell too much on my house because our front drive is about 2 meters from the pavement, so I tend to turn motion detection off because otherwise every passerby triggers it. You can set zones to say only detects motion here and here, but again, those things don't work particularly well. The other thing I'd say that isn't great on this one is the alerts over 4G. So when someone rings my doorbell, quite often the Alexa in my office will chime immediately, say someone's at the doorbell, someone's at the door, and then about 10 seconds later my phone will go ding a ding, ding a ding, someone's at your door. It's over 4G, there seems to be a bit of a delay, and if you're out and you want to speak to somebody to say, just leave the parcel around the side, or we'll be back on Tuesday, it doesn't really respond in time a lot of the time to be able to even speak to the person. They've sodded off down the road by the time you get to the video link. So yeah, it has its flaws, but then I'd say Ring doorbells are pretty similar in those terms too. So the good thing here, price, it's £119 from Tapo direct. You can get it a bit cheap if you buy it off Amazon. It's often in sales. It's been out a while now, so you'll often find in things like the Amazon sale coming up, it'll be reduced even further. So that's £190 right off. You don't need to pay the subscription. There is a subscription element that unlocks some extra features, which I can't remember off the top of my head. None of them are, in my mind, particularly worth paying for. I think one of them is this like smart alerts thing that we can get. So the one that would be quite useful is the feature where it sends you a still image of who's just rang your doorbell. If you want that, you have to pay the subscription fee. But for the £20 or £30 a year they charge for that, I think I can live without that particular feature. But there's no need to pay the subscription. You get a chime that comes in the box. The chime's nice and loud. You pop a SD memory card into that chime. It connects to your router, and you can see who's knocked at your door for however long your storage lasts, basically. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned, and certainly much cheaper than using Ring. Any questions from the floor? Darren, your hand is aloft.
Yes, well, you just brought up at the very end the one thing I was curious about, which is how much space do these does the footage take? Because obviously, if it's not streaming anywhere, it looks like I can't stream it to a NAS drive or something. It looks like you need to keep it on your SD card. Do I need to be paying, like 60 quid for a ½ terabyte card, or can I just stick in a 4 gig one I have lying around and that'll do me for a year?
Yeah, it's not massive footage. Remember, it's only like 10, 20-second clips of somebody knocking at your door or setting off a motion detection. I'm just desperately trying to get to my hub to tell you how much storage I've actually used on my SD card. So, well, mine's been on the door for 4 months now, and I've used 1.1 gigabytes out of the
Okay, so
yeah, well,
because
1.1 gigabytes.
the maximum it'll take is reportedly a 512 gig one. So if you install one of those, then it'll probably last you for the lifetime of the house, let alone the ring.
Yeah,
the
but you got to bear in mind, mine's only recording people who knock, not motion detection. So if you do motion detection, you might want to. You're going to use more data, but you know,
Sure.
how often are you going to go back months and months?
Yeah,
for-
no, I was just wondering because it's really, really high resolution, much higher than I would have thought it needed to be honest. But
Yeah, it's good as well. You know, you can actually see really clearly the video quality on your phone or Amazon devices, as I said. John,
One good reason for needing high resolution, of course, is these things tend to be 180-degree fisheye view. So you need all the resolution you can get to cover like a 20-30 degree angle. Can you power this off 18-volt AC?
you cannot. No, that's a very good point. This is battery only, this one. And the other thing to note here is it has two mounting options. So you have a screw mount where you screw a sort of template into the wall and then clip it on, or it's adhesive. And that's the option I've used because I've got a PVC front door, so we can stick it to the thin sort of board of the door. And I was a bit worried about that at first. I thought, how long's that adhesive going to last? Which is part of the reason I've left it so long to sort of come to you before I give my verdict. But that adhesive is nice and solid. But to get the battery out, you have to sort of press down pretty firmly on the top to take the battery out. So I do still have a slight lingering concern that one day I'm going to accidentally press too hard on that and take the adhesive off. But right now, that's not been a problem. Battery life, by the way, bear in mind, again, I'm only largely doing doorbell alerts. It's been on there for 4 months and I've still got 25% of the battery left. So it's pretty good, long-lasting battery. You won't need to change it that often.
Yeah, I mean, it's the event handling stuff that's going to kill the battery rather than people just pushing a doorbell.
Yes, absolutely. And when I for the first couple of weeks of testing, I did have motion alerts on. That was knocking the battery down at I'd say about 10% a week. So bear that in mind. You are looking at a much quicker churn on the battery if you go for motion alerts.
Barry, can I ask
Hello.
a quick question?
Pushka.
Hi. Great. So, you know your motion detector, does it detect animals?
It does. Again, this is one of its features. It can specifically be set to detect animals and to ignore those as opposed to just humans, for example. It's hard to tell how well that works because my front door faces onto the street. So by and large, animals are accompanied by humans along the road, but the odd cat did trigger it occasionally and it did ignore them, didn't set off alerts. So it's largely fine.
Though it's obviously it's a non-subscription or mainly non-subscription service. Obviously, there's still an infrastructure. I'm guessing you're running a lot of stuff from an app.
So Tapo has an app which covers all of its smart home gear. So I've got a couple of Tapo smart plugs here. I've got Tapo light bulbs. All of it gets crowded into the one central app. The one thing I do find slightly annoying about the Tapo app is that it breaks the hub and the doorbell into two different sections of the app. So if I want to review the video, I have to go to the Tapo hub. If I want to change the doorbell settings, I have to go to the doorbell bit. It's a bit awkward, but it's not exactly a killer. But yeah, the app works fine. It's got nice options, very easy to manage the storage, other connected devices, event logs, that kind of stuff. All the stuff you'd expect from a doorbell app. It's pretty good going.
Have they given any indication how long they're going to support this particular version that you've got?
No, that's a fair point. I think Tapo have been in this market for a fair while, so I don't suspect they're about to leap out of it, especially now Amazon have gifted them the opportunity to sell loads more by hiking up the ring fees. But yeah, it's a risk, certainly. But the thing about it being local, of course, is that even if they froze it now, that there's no cloud service for them to switch off. I guess they could leave it running. I know, the app has to be supported, but they're going to keep supporting the app surely because it is central to all of their devices. So I'm pretty confident that this isn't going anywhere for the lifespan of the doorbell. Famous last words when they cancel it next week. Go on, John. Yes, John. You're going to have to unmute yourself. Good job he didn't unmute himself when he just...
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it?
Just said that.
I'll understand software at some point in my life. Does it support OnVIF?
I don't know what OnVIF is. Sorry.
ONVIF, the open protocol for security cameras. So can you get this pulling into a camera recording NAS, like a Synology or? I can't see anything on their website if I'm looking at the right one.
No, I don't know is the answer to that. But I will say that if you read PC Pro features a couple of months ago, I talked about Home Assistant, and you can pull its video feeds into Home Assistant. So I'm guessing there must be some kind of open standard going on there, but I don't know the answer to that specifically, I'm afraid. Any more? Darren, would you mind setting up the poll for me to stop me rattling away while I talk?
I'll do my best.
And so while Darren is starting the poll for our friends on Discord, and just a reminder, you can join us live on Discord every week at pcpro.link/Discord if you would like to vote on whether you think doorbells are fantastic or not. I'm going to start with my dear friend, Mr. Grant.
I just want to say before I start, I make little notes on each podcast. That's how I know it's obviously 700. And today's note will be something Barry's just said, which is the real strength of this doorbell, which will be, I'm going to have him a T-shirt made. The pinnacle of tech here. We've talked about doorbells before, and I got a Ring during the pandemic, as I think most people did, obviously for fear that someone might come at you and cough, so you could sort of fend them off before they got anywhere near your letterbox. And then it broke spectacularly early, and I didn't replace it because I realised the huge prices compared to buying a 10 quid doorbell from Argos and stuff like that. Obviously, it doesn't have the camera. So I'm always a bit wary of smart doorbells. But I have to say, the price on this doesn't frighten me too much. And I like the fact that things are local. That does take a lot of the subscription element away, which is cool. I like the fact that the battery packs, you can buy another one and sort of have one on charge and then shove it in, so you don't have to sort of take the bell off the wall for half a day to charge it and things like that. I think that's quite smart, and they're not unreasonably priced. Also, it's got a removable battery, which means it's easily to recycle. So I have to say, all things being equal, and obviously Mr. Collins has tried and tested it, and I think he's going to have a terrible shock when he comes to remove that adhesive on his door and probably find out he's got to take the door off because it'll be solid by now. I'm going to give it a hot.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Darian.
I like it, but I mean, even at its currently reduced price of 120 quid, I mean, it's a lot to pay for a doorbell. I know it does more. I know that if you're somebody who's continuing out and about, who lives in a very large estate, it can be very helpful. But it's still a high price for what to me would seem like a fairly modest improvement in quality of life. There is an alternative version which has a lower resolution, but it's still 2304 by 1296 pixels, and that's 90 quid, which I feel maybe I could kind of see myself swinging. But basically, the short answer is I like it. I like lots of things about it. I'm put off by the price. I'm struggling to call it hot. But it's not cold either. All right, you've won me over with your arm twisting. It is hot, but I'd really like, I will hold out for, as you say, Prime Day or something.
Okay, Roche.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
So actually, I'm sort of as if Lee and Darian have had a baby, because I'm like flat in the center of my thing. Was the prices looks pretty good. There's no subscription, the battery life, and I've got CCTV, which is a bit clunky to check on the phone if you're away. But it's Darian's point. It's like, £120 for a doorbell. It's a doorbell. However, that said, I would never have bought the Ring, and I'm tempted by it. And as there's no middle ground, I'm going to go hot.
Lovely. John?
Well, it's a perfectly functional piece of kit, clearly. It does the job, the app works, it rings your doorbell, and you got storage and some video and all the rest of it. And all of that is, perfectly lovely and lukewarm. The thing that I think is important here is that it's not tying you into a subscription that you've got to keep paying in order for the thing to keep working. And although Ring products have generally got pretty good picture quality and so forth, and the app experience is very good, and they're very easy for people because they just sort of stick it up and run the app, and a little miracle occurs and it's all fine. You are then hooked into this this rolling subscription, and you have to consider the cost of a rolling subscription over, say, a 5 or 8 year period, especially, if you're like Lee and you want to make the absolute maximal life out of these products, as indeed we all should. And so in the likes of a Ring, there is no possibility really to, I mean, yes, you can run a Ring product without a subscription, but you don't get any storage, you don't get this, you don't get that. So in my mind, that doesn't meet the necessary minimum function of what you're buying the product for. So you do get hooked into it. And therefore you have to consider the cost over a 3 year, 5 year period of the subscription. Looked in those terms, the 100 odd quid or something for this is actually not that expensive when you look at the total cost. I would personally be a little bit happier if you could power it off 18 volt AC, because then I would then not worry about batteries. I'd even be happier if it was power over Ethernet, because that way I then wouldn't be reliant upon Wi-Fi and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's a doorbell. That's the long the short. And I'm kind of like the others, which is, to me, it doesn't scream hot, but it's certainly not cold. And there isn't a lukewarm in the middle. So from that point of view, I'm going to have to give it a hot.
Wow, clean sweep of just about hots in the studio. And it seems to have won over the crowd there as well. Just about 17 hot votes, or 16, sorry. Oh, someone's messing around there. Every week, don't try it, people. 700 shows I've heard to put up with this nonsense. 17 votes hot, 14 not. So it's a minor victory. People, just to say, people saying, like, I don't get these. Why do you even need one of these? The reason I use one in particular is because I sit out here in the garage. So the normal doorbell, I just can't hear. I completely agree. If you're just in the house all the time, I think it's a marginal purchase as well. But if you've got a very specific need to hear the doorbell when you're 30 yards down the garden, then that's why I use them.
Can I put in one little side thought here, which is that a PoE-powered SIP phone that looks like a doorbell, so you forget about the video, but something that you press a button and it's actually a telephone unit, is actually all you really need. And
I was just invented the intercom here, John.
Well, no, it's not the intercom, because it's going SIP, so it goes through your phone system. I was doing this 20-something years ago in the first year of 3CX, and they were really good, and they worked really well. And the introduction of doing video to this has actually complicated things quite badly in terms of data rates and connectivity and so forth. So if you've got a SIP phone solution, and of course with the death of analog phones, we're all kind of moving to a SIP world. There is actually an interesting market out there for a SIP phone-based doorbell solution, which is simpler, easier, and just actually works as a phone.
Well, Honeyball Doors is coming to you this time next week. In the meantime, we will be back. We will be back next time next week for podcast 701. Or will we? Are we having a week off?
Oh, we are having a week off, yes.
So we're ignore everything I've just said. We will not be back this time. We are 700 and out. 701 will be back in a fortnight's time. We're going to put our feet up. Have a lovely time, and we will see you then. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Right, dear friends on Discord and YouTube, and anyone listening on Riverside, when I hit the stop button, you stop existing as far as we're concerned. So let's just say thanks all for joining us. And yes, there'll be a tweet or something, but there's no podcast next week because we just cannot work out our diaries, darling.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.